This video is based on the technical analysis of Bitcoin, which is also known as BTC. And at this point in time, we find ourselves on the monthly chart, as you guys can see. So what we look to do in regards to the monthly chart of Bitcoin is to look for the market structure, market patterns, key support and resistance levels, candlestick patterns that we should be paying attention to, as well as potential buy and sell levels, right? So without wasting any further time, let's get straight into the actual technical analysis. And as I said, guys, we are on the monthly chart, and in regards to the monthly chart, we can see that the market had given us this huge double top or M structure, which had a neckline at that point. And you guys know by now that whenever we have these M structures or double tops, we want to see price break the bottom side of that neckline, and then in the future head back to the neckline to create a test. And where we have that neckline, generally speaking, is where we look for those potential selling opportunities, especially if that neckline aligns with any key numbers that we have in regards to the Fibonacci retracement tool, right? So we can see, as I said, guys, that at this point we saw the market push further down and then come back to the neckline to give it a test. And I believe that at this point over here is where we should potentially be looking for those selling opportunities. We should potentially be looking for those selling opportunities. What else do we see on the monthly chart of Bitcoin that we should be paying attention to? Another thing that I see that is also very much interesting or important over and above the fact that we have this M structure is the fact that we have an opposing structure, which is actually an inverted head and shoulders pattern over here, right? I hope you guys can see that, and it has a neckline at that level, more or less. Inverted head and shoulders patterns are very much similar to M structures in that whenever we have these patterns, ideally we also want to see the market close above that neckline of that pattern and then head back to the neckline to give it a test. And where we have that neckline is generally where we look for those potential buying opportunities, especially if the neckline actually aligns with any key numbers that we have in regards to the Fibonacci retracement tool. So we did see the market come back to the neckline to give it a test, and I know that a lot of people actually bought at this point, right, where we have that neckline, and their first take profit will be around this level over here, where we have the neckline of that huge M pattern that we spoke about, or double top. And that is because the neckline of this double top is now a very strong level of resistance, and what may possibly happen at that level is that we may see the market from where it is actually move further down to around this level again, right? And what else do we see, guys, in regards to the monthly chart? At this point, I don't see much really, but I also just want to point out that we have this candlestick over here, and what it is a bullish candlestick with a small body and quite a long upper wick. And you guys know that what it means is that at the top where that wick ends, we have a lot of liquidity there, and liquidity represents money that needs to be triggered by the money at some point or another. So it makes sense at this point in time, in my very humble opinion, for the market to continue to move further up to around where we have that neckline. And where we have that neckline, we may potentially see the market push further down to around this level, right? So what else do we see, guys? Remember, in previous videos, I've also spoken about how we have this candlestick over here. What it is a bearish candlestick, which has a small body and quite a long lower wick, and at the bottom where that wick ends, we have a lot of liquidity there. And you guys know that liquidity is money, and that money needs to be triggered by the market at one point or another. So what could possibly happen is we may see a situation where the market from this level actually moves further down to grab the liquidity at this point, right? Another thing that motivates for why the market may actually push further down is because, as I said earlier, we have this inverted head and shoulders pattern. And what normally happens with inverted head and shoulders patterns is that a lot of traders and investors not only buy on that second leg of that, or rather the right hand shoulder of that pattern, they also buy once the market closes above the neckline. And what they do is a lot of them place their stop losses just below this shoulder over here, and others just below the head. So what I'm saying in other words is that there's a lot of money stuck in and around this region, and it would make sense for the market to actually move further down from where it is to trigger all of those stop losses that are located here, and then continue to move further down to grab the liquidity associated with that candlestick over there, right? So there is plenty of scope for the market to continue to move further down, and that's one of the reasons why at this point in time I'm not too excited as far as Bitcoin goes. Another reason why I say so is because if you actually look at this double top over here, in my very humble opinion, it started more or less at this point, and ideally I would love to see it end in line with where it started. So there is plenty of scope for the market to continue to move further down, right? Anyway, from here what I'm going to do, guys, is head down to the weekly chart, and let's have a look in terms of what's happening on the weekly chart. Just bear with me. Let's have a look. And here we are on the weekly chart, right? And just to recap, guys, remember on the monthly chart we spoke about how we have this huge M structure which has a neckline at that point, and we said that price at this point is heading up to the neckline to give it a test, and where we have that neckline is where we may potentially look for those selling opportunities, right? And also remember we have that candlestick over here, which is a bullish candlestick with a small body and quite a long upper wick. And I said to you guys that where that wick ends at the top, we have a lot of liquidity there, and liquidity is money that needs to be triggered by the market. Hence we're seeing, in my very humble opinion, this movement up. What's possibly likely to happen is that we're going to see the market move all the way up to around this level to trigger that liquidity, and then at that point we may potentially see the market actually move further down, right? Another thing that I also want to mention is that we have this candlestick over here. It is very much similar to that candlestick that I spoke about at this point, in that it too is a liquidity candlestick. So there's a lot of liquidity stuck there, and actually the market may move further up to trigger the liquidity at this point, and then only move further down, and it may give us what is an overextended rather M structure, where that first leg of that M is much lower than that second leg, right? And at this point what I'm doing is just speculating. I'm not necessarily saying that the market will unravel in the manner in which I'm describing. I'm just showing you some of the possible outcomes that we may encounter in as far as Bitcoin goes. Another thing that I had also spoken about is the fact that we have what is an inverted head and shoulders pattern at this point, which also has a neckline at that level, and we saw price breaking to the upside of that neckline, coming back to the neckline, and at this neckline I said that a lot of traders and investors actually bought there, as the anticipation is for the market to continue to move further up, right? So what I'm saying in other words is that within this block over here, we're either going to see price move down or continue to move up. So we need to be careful and make sure that we practice good money management in as far as buying within that block. And nonetheless, let's continue. What else do we see on the weekly chart that we should be paying attention to? On the weekly chart, I don't see much really. So what I will do, guys, is head down to the daily chart. And here we are on the daily chart. On the daily chart, I'm just going to start off by adding my daily channel, and just bear with me while I do so. And just remember, guys, that we just need to ensure that whatever drawings that we do indeed add to our charts are as close to perfection as possible, just to ensure that ultimately when we do execute, our execution is also very much intact and as close to perfection as possible as well, right? And we can see, guys, that in regards to the daily chart, we are indeed in an upward trending market. And let's zoom in and see what else is happening in regards to the daily chart. On the daily chart, we can see that we have what seems to be an overextended W structure happening here, which has a neckline at that point. Should this candlestick close above that neckline, the anticipation would then be for the market to move further up to around this level, which is in line with what we discussed on the weekly chart, where we have that inverted head and shoulders pattern that we spoke about, right? Anyway, just based on the daily chart, I would say that we should wait, in my very, very humble opinion, for the market to reach that level. And at this level, I believe we should possibly look for those selling opportunities, right? At that level, I believe we should possibly be looking for selling opportunities. Why do I say so? Let me just zoom out a bit. And in fact, let me go back to the weekly chart. Just bear with me. Remember, guys, earlier I spoke about how we have this huge double top, which has a neckline at that point. And I said to you guys that whenever we have these M structures, we want to see price breaking to the bottom side of that neckline and then heading back up to the neckline to give it a test. And where that neckline is generally where we look for those potential selling opportunities. This neckline is a very strong level of resistance, as we've had multiple rejections in and around that area, right? And we may potentially see the market move further down at that level, right? So let's head back to the daily chart, right? So as I said, guys, myself personally, I would wait for the market to reach this level more or less, and in this zone is where I will look for potential selling opportunities. I'm not just going to sell, I'm going to look for potential selling opportunities, right? But as far as buying goes, because we have this level over here, which is, as I said, the neckline of this overextended W structure. And by the way, it is an overextended W structure because that first leg is much higher than that second leg. What I would do in as far as buying goes is I would wait for the market to close first above this level, and then for it to head back to the level to give it a test. And where we have this neckline is where I will look for potential buying opportunities, especially if the neckline aligns with the Fibonacci retracement, or rather any key levels that we have on the Fibonacci retracement tool, right? And then I would look for reversal candlestick patterns, and if I find any at this point is where I would look for those potential buying opportunities, and my take profit will be around this level, which is where we have the neckline of that huge M structure that we spoke about. And as I said, it's also a very strong level of resistance at this point in time, and at this level I would then look for those potential selling opportunities. And if I do indeed find any good ones, my first take profit will be around this level, right? Why do I say this level? That is because this level is a very strong level of support, as we've had multiple rejections there, and it's also the neckline of this overextended W structure. And my second take profit will be around this level over here, just below that W structure. And just to zoom out, my third take profit will be around this level over here, right, which is where we have that inverted head and shoulders pattern.